This is Ed again in San Diego, and you're on Global TV Talk Show. We're going to be joined by others coming into this program in just a minute, so please stand by. Thank you. Hello, Shamin, welcome again, and hello, Mark Colo. Please say hello. All right, while Mark is tuning in, um, hello, Shamin, welcome again. Please say hi. And this is my friend and client, Chris Exline, who's in Ukraine. And meet Shamin, Chris Exline.
Nice to
Hello.
meet you.
Wonderful to meet you as well.
I'm really
O-
excited to hear what you have to share.
Okay, so we're going to begin, Chris, in a couple of minutes, but I want more people to come in and join us. Mark Colo, can you hear me? No, you're on mute. Mark. Okay, Mark Colo is in Utah, and they do have electricity there, but for some reason, his voice is not coming through. Hello, Mark. Okay, Mark and I have known each other a number of years through the relocation industry. He was in the transportation side. Um, Mark, several years ago, came down with Parkinson's, and he's been impacted by that, but has um, organized a charity to help others who are afflicted.
Hello, Ed.
Hello, Mark. I'm just introducing you. Please say hello, Mark
Hello,
Colo.
everyone.
Okay, Mark.
Good to be with you.
I want you to meet Shamin, who's in New
Okay.
York. She is involved in the psychotherapy in
Oh, wow.
practice. And Mark, please meet Chris Exline, who's, I think you already met him before. He's in Ukraine.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Mark. Nice to see you again.
Yeah,
Yeah, good to be
great.
here.
So Mark Colo and I have produced a series of health-oriented health and wellness videos, and he's had some doctors, and Mark Colo uh, has devoted his life to helping others who are impacted by this disease. Dr. Howard Fedorov has a friend of Mark Colo's. He introduced me to Dr. Fedorov. Dr. Fedorov has been a speaker on our health-oriented medical shows in the past. Mark Colo, you've recently joined at a senior level Dr. Fedorov in a new venture. Why don't
I
you tell
have.
us about that,
I
please?
have. Well, I'm really excited about it. I've known Howard now for probably close to 10 years. In fact, I'll try and share an abbreviated story of how we first met. Yeah, it's worth listening to. I had a client at University of California, Irvine. Her name was Diane Silver. And she called me up one day and said, Mark, I need your help. I said, sure, Diane, what's up? She says, I've got to move a guy that's going to be my boss's boss. And if you mess it up, I'll lose my job. So I said, oh, no sweat, Diane. I'll take care of that. So I hung up the phone with Diane. I called Howard, said, Howard, this is Mark Colo. I work with Chipman Relocation. We've been assigned to relocate your laboratories from Georgetown University to UC Irvine, which is about 3,000 miles away. I mean, it's coast to coast. And he says to me, um, well, that's great. I've been waiting for the phone call for some time now, and they get a little slow in purchasing sometimes, I think, but they finally made the contact and got me in touch. I gave my favorite question that I give to every senior executive that I've ever moved, and that's Howard, can you tell me what your biggest concern is about this relocation? Then I shut up. And he said, wow, that's a great question. He says, well, I have 14 cryogenic freezers with 40,000 brain samples of individuals who've passed away with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. It's my life's work. I cannot afford to have any one of those samples missing or damaged or harmed in any way. I said, boy, Howard, that's a tall order, you know, but I want you to know I'm committed to get you out here in great shape because I have a vested interest in you and our relationship. He said, well, can I ask what that is? I said, yes, you may. I said, I have Parkinson's. And I think I'd had it for about 10 years at that point when we first spoke. Now I've had it for about 20. So, but that was, you know, I have 5 adaptive principles that I share. I shared it in my TEDx talk, which I did a year ago in our hometown here. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to probably do another one. At least I'm hoping I'll do another one sometime soon.
Okay, Mark, I want to introduce you to Emily Braun, who's in Toronto, and want to introduce you to Christian Ternedin, who's in Orange County, California.
Oh,
And I want to introduce you to Joseph McGuire, who's in Dublin. Welcome, friends. Welcome. I want you to meet Shamin, who's in Brooklyn, and Chris
Hi.
Exline, I think you already know from Ukraine, and Stephen Howard uh, in Phoenix. Um,
wow.
so this is real interesting. Emily and I have known each other a couple of years. She's an original member of the Global Press Club, has been on our show many times, and she has formed her own broadcasts as a result of that wonderful experience of
How
learning
fun.
from what we're doing. Thank you, Emily. Why don't you just do a minute, introduce yourself about what you're doing and what you're talking about and how you help people.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm really happy to be with you again, Edwin, and to see my old friend, not old friend, Chris Exline, friend
A good friend of many months.
of many months. And by the way, thanks to you, you actually introduced me to Chris.
Me,
Yes,
I'm a link maker.
yes,
That
absolutely.
that's my job.
And I know some other people. Hi, Joseph. Nice to see you here. Yes. Uh, to be short, my next project, which I'm very passionate about and planning to launch in January, uh, and at the same time, I'm developing my 2 podcasts now, Age of Reinvention. Age of Reinvention number 1, as I say, main podcast is redefine freedom, lifestyle, and purpose at midlife for the 50 plus professionals who are already in a process or maybe already found new purpose in life, launched new companies, started new ventures. And Chris was my first guest actually for this podcast. Thank you, Chris. And my second podcast, it's a smaller topic, Age of Reinvention, Eco-Living, Free Private Cities, and Intentional Communities. But my next project for the next year, I would like to launch platform, new kind of platform, again, for 50 plus professionals in North America and Europe and Latin America. And name is Midlife Expat Alliance, Lifestyle and Business Club. There are several layers. There are several layers in my vision, but first stage will be to connect English-speaking professionals from North America and expats from Europe, people who relocated recently, I mean up to 5 years, and expats in Latin America. So, Edwin, I will not compete with you. It's something different.
No, don't worry about it. So
Yes,
we need to move on, but don't go away because this is very, very interactive. So Emily, I want you to meet Dr. Ken Lloyd and also Christian Ternedin and Heather de Cruz Cornieri. I'm sure I mispronounced that, and Shamin. Shamin is a psychotherapist, and just so you know, and Heather is a business psychologist, and Joseph McGuire from Dublin is an expert in facial facts. So we have so much going on here. It's just amazing. But we need to go to Chris Exline because he's got one hell of a story. He and I did an interview in the last 24 hours or so, and I've started to write it up for another publisher in London to bring Chris Exline to the forefront as much as I can. I enlisted a publisher that I know in London to help me expand that recognition for Chris Exline. Chris Exline is an executive. I've known him for 25 years. He's known me. He founded without any venture money, without any bank, bootstrap, what has become the largest furniture rental company outside of the U.S. and living the high life, 30 floors up above busy Hong Kong in luxury. He decided to uproot himself 2 years ago and relocate his executive office into Ukraine, which was under attack, bombing, threats. And he bought, invested money, bought the manufacturing capacity of a mattress company that was, and the whole town had 40% unemployment, he says. And so he put people back to work and taught methods, new methods of what to do. And he makes mattresses. Chris Exline, tell us about Rest Assured Ukraine, the donations. We don't have a lot of time here, but I wanted to give you the mic.
There we go. Well, listen, it's so good to see so many of you, and especially Emily. Nice to see you again. We need you to come back to Ukraine. Real quickly, our company, Home Essentials, is the largest furniture rental company outside the United States. We're headquartered in Hong Kong, and but we have a celebrated history. I furnished the Green Zone in Baghdad, Iraq. Did most of the embassies in Kabul, Afghanistan. I actually personally set up the entire government of South Sudan and Juba and El Fasher, Djibouti, Madagascar, Libya, other places. So our initial focus on coming into Ukraine was to participate in the reconstruction. And, in Afghanistan and Iraq, we were kind of going in, managing by reaction because we were going in after the forces and the liberation. And I said, we need to be prepared and, really get a very firm, solid foundation here. Like everybody else in the world, my initial images of Ukraine were like the gold domes of the Sophia Cathedral or cannons in a wheat field or, something horrific like Mariupol. And, when it was announced that our company was going to come to Ukraine, then we started receiving all these investment profiles from these, different cities and provinces called oblasts. And they were like a Disney movie. They had castles and monasteries and convents and old academies. And I said, you know what? Because I'm neither a psychologist nor an author, so I'm much more pedestrian than the rest of the audience here. But I said that's what I want our brand to be. And when I got to this town of Kremenets, because we manufacture everything in China, but that was a non-starter. And so you come into a small town like this, and you meet these people, and you're affected. I mean, you really are. And it's one thing, as you said, Ed, living in a thank you so much for saying all that. But I mean, where I live in Hong Kong, where we live, or where our offices are incubated. You're not really connecting with people. When you're in a small town of 20,000 people with 3,500 refugees and 40% unemployment, you're moved. And if you're not moved, then you probably need to see Heather for an extended period of time, or Charmaine. But what I'm getting at is, I approached him and I said, well, do these people that are sleeping on cardboard boxes, do they need mattresses? And the city said, well, we don't have the money for it. I said, well, I'll donate. And that's what started Rest Assured. And I started donating mattresses. I've donated well over 5,000 mattresses to the troops, to the internally displaced, to the orphans. and all over Ukraine, as Emily very well knows. I mean, talk about accountability. We have a phenomenal accountability partner here with Emily. So if I'm saying anything wrong, our Moldovan will tell us. And then what happened was, and I don't know how Heather and Charmin will respond to this, but we hear about things. We're so inundated with news and reports, good and bad. Charmin, yes, we have a self-confessed sexual predator that's been returned to power, but yet what do we do about it? Back in July, I was first introduced to some foster homes, and what happened was it was in a small town of about 5,000 people. And with Rest Assured, basically what happened was, I started donating these mattresses. Friends of mine said, "Hey, can I help?" And I said, "No, don't worry. No, I want to help." And I guess I was so scarred by what I'd seen in Afghanistan, Iraq, where people come in, fly in, they have pictures and then leave. I said, "I'll tell you what, if you want to donate a mattress, that's great. Cap it at $100. And I will give you a photo of me actually delivering that mattress to that person, and your name will be on the label." And because again, I'm all about transparency, accountability, making sure that there's no questions about anything that we're doing. And in July, when I'm in this small town of about 5,000 people, there was a foster home. They had 9 children in that home. And the home was nice. I'm not saying anything about that. We delivered the mattress, and I asked the kids to get a photo taken next to the mattress. This precious young girl, she walks up to the mattress, does a swirl, and strikes a pose. And my immediate thought was, I don't know if she'd seen this on TikTok or YouTube, Instagram. It didn't matter. I said, this girl has no chance. She's got zero chance. Fostering, I did not know this. I'd heard about it. Now that I've been confronted, it's a business. Many of these foster parents, they all receive money from the government, and that's their income. And this girl in a town of 5,000 people, she's never going to get out of there. Where can she be a model? Where does she even have, who can tell her to have the courage and confidence to even dream? And about 2 weeks ago, as you know, I was back in these areas, and Dnipro is the 4th largest city in Ukraine. It was about 50 kilometers outside of it. And I was in some of the most shocking homes I'd ever seen. And there was one home, an incredible young man could not wait to show me 2 medals, the most precious thing in his life, where he had won in a karate championship. And at that point, Ed, as I've said on your programs before, if I have a chance to make a difference, that's a chance I have to take. Yes, I'm CEO. We're not an NGO. We're a for-profit company, thank God. And we are all about business, thank God. And, but, if you just come here to make money and are not moved by the people that you see, then what's the point of life? At 60 years old, what else do I need to do? For those of you that know Hong Kong, where I told you, you know where I live now, thank you. Show up anytime. We'll be there for Christmas if you want to come in. But, we have a roof. But what I'm getting at is, I said, you know what? We can't just donate mattresses and go away. This is what we're going to do. I've created Fostering Our Future. And we are creating an entire program to help all of these foster kids. We're going to bring those foster families into a community. We're working with peoplemovers.org. We're working with amazing organizations in the United States and Western Europe. If these kids have an aptitude for science, mathematics, ballet, music, whatever, we want them to have the confidence and the courage to dream. We're going to connect them. And more importantly, most of you know, I'm not a parent and never will be. My husband and I, we thought about it, but it's just at 60, I'm probably too grumpy of an old man to have children. But what I saw in these foster homes 2 weeks ago, it was not the children, it was the foster parents. And Ed, indulge me for just a few more minutes. you know, Ken, you know this, and Stephen, you know this. It's as a CEO or a senior manager, you know, our number one job is about removing excuses, number one. And two, it's about quickly identifying what's happening in a room to see who is affected, who will participate, who won't, da da da. And my first thought in seeing these, you've got like 10 kids in a room. Those moms are going to have a bad day. And my thought was, who can they talk to? Who they can't just walk next door. There's no peer-to-peer group for these people. When they just need someone to listen to them, where do they go? All day, every day, these kids are asking and deserving attention. You know, wanting to share something, or maybe there's a fight or whatever it is. And I believe that the most important thing that I can do, or we can do, for those foster children is create a healthy foster parent environment. If you have healthy foster parents, you have healthy children. And so we're getting together with counselors and with people that will be able to just see them. With every family that is accepted into our program, we are going to give them a desktop, not a laptop, a desktop computer. I will give them it so that they can participate in calls, participate in English Anytime, participate in peer-to-peer support groups, participate with counselors, participate with trying to connect with other people in Ukraine and around the world to ensure. Like there was one kid, he wants to go to law school. I'm sitting there going, you know, one, it takes a certain aptitude to say, I want to go to law school. You're in a family with 12 kids. It was a great family. And where are you even going to be able to prepare for law school? You know, and so I said, I'll tell you what, we are going to I found someone, a Ukrainian lawyer, that's going to help him for his entrance exams. I went into another home where there were 3 refrigerators, 2 still in a box. I went in because she said she needed mattresses. I said, I want to see the beds. Oh, no, you can't see. Oh, no, I want to see them. Sure enough, I went in, all those beds had brand new mattresses. She's using these children as currency to get more cash. Now, we can have a righteous anger about people like that, and we should, but we don't want to exclude those people. We want to create a community that wants them to join. And so that's what fostering our future is all about. And I truly believe that with Home Essentials, I have a responsibility to create a business that's in alignment with the market, that makes a profit, that has a justifiable reason for being here. And I'm proud to say that we've done that. I mean, Home Essentials, our rent-to-own programs here in Ukraine, are very, very popular. Even during the war, I'm opening up 25 stores in the next 25 months. We're doing that through our own corporate cash flow. I'm also blessed that I've got a family that allows me and supports me to be here, even though long distance is hard for all of us that are expatriates. Hong Kong has been my home for 27 years. Long distance is difficult, but I've got a very supportive family unit. My company is fully supportive of this, and I don't have to worry about investors, board of directors, top line revenue, or things like that. So I can be here for as long as it takes, and I will be. And so it's like a railroad track. One side is having a business that makes sense, and it also lends a tremendous credibility to me. And as Emily knows, you know, Emily knows better than most. The Home Essentials is super well respected in this country. It's loved, and when people see that I've been on the front lines of Avdiivka and Robotyne and Zaporizhzhia on the Russian border delivering mattresses to the troops, when they see that I'm delivering to these orphans, you know, our corporate credibility is an all-time high. And that enables us to have, and that affords me the cash flow to sit there and create these programs. So for fostering our future, we're not asking for donations. For Rest Assured, yes, if you want to donate a mattress, go right ahead. restassured.com, restassuredukraine.com, as Emily has done, and Christian, thank you very much. multiple occasions on Christian. But what I'm getting at is, you know, and for Sharman and Ken and Stephen and Heather, you know, I'm going to be accountable for this life at some point. And when I'm accountable for it, is someone really going to ask me, what am I going to say? Oh, thank you for a penthouse apartment in one of the best streets in Hong Kong or on planet Earth, or the cars or those things? Or am I going to say, you know, you gave me a chance at redemption. You gave me a chance to actually make a difference in the lives of people that have no chance whatsoever. And
Chris Exline, you're doing God's work, and I really appreciate your time here and talking with us. Please say hello by the chat. Please, everybody connect. It's a mental health challenge, isn't it, Chris?
The PTSD, the mental health issues in this country are unquantifiable. When I go back to the US and the fake news that goes on is off the charts. You know, when people tell me, oh, well, the war is only really in the eastern side, you know, I said, in the small, and this is what it is. Ken, Sharman, Stephen, and Heather, being in a small town, you're around everybody. And this small town of 20,000 people has already lost 100 men to the war. And I'm at the front place at the services in the central square of this town. And I've told this to Christian and a few other people before. For me, there was one day you go up there and you see mothers clinging to a casket, knowing that their child is gone. Well, you tell her how far away the war is. And there was one day when there was an older man crying, holding this young boy, probably 8, 9, 10 years old. And as I was putting flowers on the coffin, it hit me. For that man, Father's Day is always going to be the day that he buried his son, and for that kid, it's the day his dad died. You know, I'm not a nice guy. Ed knows this. Ed's known me for 25 years. I'm not a nice guy. I'm a changed man now, and I'm very much a changed man. I would have 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have never acted like this. It was all about becoming the biggest and pursuing global ambitions and blah, blah, blah. And now,
well, you've done it. You've done it. You're at the pinnacle, and really, I want to give you all the exposure you can get, because we're going to help expose you, and in a good way, and because it's all about donations. Heather, you're raising your hand, and we're going to turn the program over to you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Chris, I'm always so deeply touched. You move me when you come to these sessions, because I can see that there's been a huge transformation in your life, and it's emotional, and you're still coming to terms with it. I guess what I wanted to say is that it takes a village to raise a child, and I'd like to join your village. If there's anything I can do in terms of helping you draw up some mental health program, or I just want you to know that I'm now in your village. So, you know, without absolutely any obligation at all. So I'm there with you. So
please connect on the chat. Joseph McGuire.
You would. Yeah, Chris, that's an incredible story you've told. And again, like Heather, I can see the transformation in you. And it's so impressive is such an understated word, but it's an inadequate word. But how you've opened up to yourself, it's deeply, deeply moving. I'm not in a position to offer financial help, but one area I can be of assistance, possibly if it's of benefit, is I was expecting your story to go darker actually than it did. But one area I can help people with is identifying the predators. That's part of my skill set. It's not easy. It's not pleasant, but it's part of my skill set. Like I said, I was expecting your story to go darker. I have one particular friend, as it happens, she's originally Moldovan also, who was actually trafficked. She's now living a very healthy life elsewhere. But I have another very close friend who works with women, particularly as it happens from an Islamic background, but not just, who have been culturally, serially abused. So that whole area is something that moves me very deeply, and it's part of my, I feel like, compulsion to assist where I can.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joseph. I think part of the reason trafficking isn't as big of a deal here is because these foster parents, they use that as an income. They'll compete for special needs children so they can get more monthly income. There's, you know, one of the benefits of, and Emily knows this, I don't speak Ukrainian, nor will I ever, but I was in one home 2 weeks ago, and the woman said, you know, these children at the age of 15, 16 have the right to leave. And she said 3 of them left, and I was actually crying. And I said, yeah, how are you going to replace that revenue? And, you know, as disgusting as it is, but that seems to be the model. The state is so overwhelmed. The state tries. I mean, I'm not saying there are bad people in the government, but for one of the things that is a blessing for us, Joseph, is we're able to operate outside of the state apparatus. Okay, if we went into the adoption program, then you become a part of the state. To adopt a child in Ukraine is, you can fast track it by bribery, or it's slow track for what's the thing in an abundance of caution, isn't that what everybody says now in the US or something? You know, so, you know, we are actually, I said, okay, we don't want to be a part of the state apparatus. We're going to operate outside of that. And we're able to do that so that we don't have any government influence. But yes, if you know, if we do once, not if, but once we start hearing of trafficking, then we will definitely get in touch with you. And if anyone has any doubts on anything that I'm saying, we have our own Emily Braun, who's actually visited me here in Ukraine, and she can attest 100% if I'm saying anything false or if I'm saying things that are accurate.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you all for participating in this. Want to introduce Ron Cooper. Hello, Ron. You're on mute right now. Say hello.
Hello, Ed and everybody. Chris, I am very moved by your story. I just recently got to know you, but I will tell you, everything you just explained can stay with a young person, any person of any age for that matter, but particularly when they're young, they wonder, or they can wonder, who cares? And I would hope that each one of us can say, I do, and I will. And when we genuinely project that in our persona and generally walk with, work with, we can help anyone over a past and help them with a very bright future. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ron. In the background, I want to welcome Khadija Islam. And Khadija, if you want to come forward, press your button and say hello briefly.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, everything's cool. So
Perfect.
thank
So
you. So this is your first time on our show. We met a couple of years ago when I produced a live meeting inside HSBC headquarters in London, and you were there.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this is your first time on the TV. So Khadija, as you can see, we have a variety of people here. And just, you know, briefly talk about what you do for a living.
So I'm the head of global mobility at a company called Agreco. So
That's a big electrical engineering company, right?
yes, so it's energy in the energy space. So it's quite global. And we move a lot of people around the world all the time, providing energy solutions where needed to our clients.
Oh, that's great. So
and I'm based out of London.
yeah, this is just great to have you. We've had a few people drop out because of the crunch of year-end reporting and getting things together with a week or so to go to Christmas. So I really appreciate your time and your effort being here today. So the greatest issue on dealing with mobility is, and we have mobility experts right here with us, But I just want to give you a stage here for a minute before we get into the psychological safety discussion. Okay, because I'm sure you can add to that and will. So the greatest thing is, and Christian, you could jump in here quickly and introduce yourself. He's a longtime mobility management expert. Christian?
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Christian Tendeten, and I have 20 years of experience in the mobility industry as a first consultant and then manager for a team of consultants. Thanks, Chris. And as Ed said, I've been on the show a number of times. I think we're past 50 at this point. And obviously, I love it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So thank you, everybody, and so nice to see many
meet
new faces.
Khadija. And how long have you been involved in global mobility, Khadija?
18 years, so not too far behind.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What's the volume of people that you, as a mobility partner with a large organization, how many people do you look after?
So I would say in terms of cross-border moves, we have around 1,000 cross-border moves a year. Sometimes we have a lot more, sometimes we have a little bit less, but average it's around 1,000.
Oh, that's terrific. Okay, I want to bring.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah, that's me. And so, Heather, I want you to take charge now. You and Shamin, take charge of this meeting and tell us about psychological safety.
Yeah, we're going to get into psychology in the workplace. Ed, can I just ask you about timing, because we're a little bit over now. So can we still have our time slots together?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So the next session is starting at 6:15. So we've got an hour and a half, but we don't need an hour and a half in this session. But
well, we might need it because of all the people here who want to learn from you and comment.
Okay, but we don't need to shorten the presentations.
No, not at all. I'm looking forward to your slides also.
I'm just going to get my...
Except I would say that I have a psychological contract with my team, and we do have a meeting at 1. So their expectation is that I will be there. So I do have to have a little bit of a hard out. I apologize for that.
How long do you have, Shamin?
I have an hour and 13 minutes.
Okay, so we've got good time. So right, let's get straight to it. So we're here today. You're getting a twofer. You're getting a 2-for-1 here. We've got Shamin, who's in New York, and you've got myself. I'm based just outside of London, Khadija, so I'm not too far from you. And we're here to talk about psychology in the workplace. And first of all, I'm going to share some insights into the psychological contract, and then that's going to be closely followed by Shamin, who's going to talk about psychological safety. And the exciting thing about this is, for me, the power of psychology is similar to, if not equal to, transformational coaching. And so it's my goal with you all today is to share a little bit of that magic, because it's that magic that first attracted me into the field of psychology in the first place. And I am a business psychologist, and my specialty really is in the field of global mobility, where I haven't been quite as long as Khadija and Christian, but I'm very, very close behind with about 16 years. So without further ado, let's move on. How do I? There. Okay, so the psychological contract. Now, we all know about the employment contract, and what we believe in work psychology is that the employment contract offers a limited understanding of the employment relationship. And so what I would like to do is talk to you all a little bit today about the different types, the origins, the definition, and how this actually can bring about some ROI blind spots in business. And then how the employer and employee relationship is changing dynamically. In fact, we're really in the midst of a paradigm shift here. So first of all, the psychological contract, what is it? Well, according to the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, it refers to an exchange relationship based upon expectations, beliefs, and an understanding of mutual responsibilities between employer and worker. And there are 3 types currently because it is evolving. This was identified way back in about the 1960s when it started emerging. And the first type that everybody is really familiar with is the transactional psychological contract. Now, what that means is it looks really at the expectations in the workplace between what your boss or your team or the organization expects of you as an employee, and also what the individual as an employee expects from his boss or her boss, the organization and the workforce. Now, I say that you expects because it's hidden. It's really, truly tacit, implicit. None of this is mentioned on paper. So there's a lot of decoding that needs to happen. And an example of a transactional psychological contract that is hidden would be, for instance, I've worked extra hours this week and my boss must have noticed it. So I'm going to be all right with my bonus this year. But none of that has been spoken. Not a word has been exchanged between the boss and the employee. And yet those expectations are formed all the time. Now, the psychological contract isn't just in the workplace. We have psychological contracts all around us all the time. In fact, in our relationships, we have expectations of our partner that we just assume that they know to be true, because for us in our belief systems, that's what we expect. So the psychological contract really is nothing, it's nothing new, but it's so powerful. The impact of needs being met or needs not being met can form toxic cultures, for instance, in the workplace. It can lead to absenteeism. It can lead to mental health issues. So there are many, many different impacts, if you like, from the psychological contract not being recognized as an employee engagement tool, for instance. Now, the second type is the relational psychological contract. Now, the relational, as it really sounds, is a bit like relationships. So what we're seeing is that the economic exchange between employer and employee is moving on as we understand relationships interpersonally, team dynamics. We're understanding more about communication, leadership. We're understanding more about things like fairness, things like loyalty for talent retention. Duty and duty of care. Morally, what does that involve? Is my company that I'm working for, does my company care about the environment? Because these are new values that are coming in that people now or employees are expecting within not just the workforce, but from the organizational side as well. So around about the 1990s, we discovered this split between the transactional and relational through research that was done by a brilliant researcher called Russo. And the outcome of that was that there really should be a balance. It's not about one being better than the other. We need both. But what we need it to be balanced. So blind spots in the workforce that may affect ROI can be, and this is very simplified, it can be down to external factors or internal factors. And what we're seeing is that we don't work in a vacuum. And as we've seen with COVID and COVID-19 and post-COVID, what we're seeing is that, and what Ken mentioned about disruption, we're seeing that we are living more in socio-political and economic turbulent times. And I think as well as we adapt to change and we can learn techniques and strategies to adapt to change, what's happening and what's so difficult is the unpredictability. We're no longer able to forecast how quickly the next big thing is going to happen. So we call this a VUCA environment, which means that there's a lot of anxiety and mental health in the workforce. And that can be a good thing, because we're now starting to talk about certain things that actually do impact the psychological contract through this turbulence. And then we've got Industry 5.0 and IR5. Now, we could have an argument or we could have a discussion about whether there really is an industry 5.0 IR5 or whether we're in 4.5 or where we're going. And I do have a lovely little chart that I'd like to share with you in the next slide, just to kind of show you where we are with our industrial revolution, because we're all in a workforce. But again, as I said, we're not in a vacuum. We're working, we have advancements in our industries and in manufacturing in particular, and engineering, that are unparalleled. And then we have things like the internal factors for the ROI blind spots, such as health and well-being and life-work balance. You know, there's a huge focus now on this, and I think that's rightly so. And then we have resilience, not just resilience of an individual, so that we thrive and we can thrive in VUCA environments, but so that organizations have resilience too and they become more agile. So what this all boils down to is a new emerging relationship, and this has been on the back burner for a while, and it's definitely been necessary, but we're having definitely a paradigm shift. And so what we need even more of to really understand and recognize the impact of psychology in the workforce, like safeguarding and the psychological contract, we need a new employment value proposition. And I've deliberately used the word employment because some people call it employer, EVP, some people call it employee, EVP. I like to call it employment so that the balance is between the two. And now what we can see if we do that is that this will help build psychological capital. Now, psychological capital is amazing. This is, I think, one of the biggest things that we can do to help psychology build ROI. According to the American Psychological Association in last year, psychological capital as a definition is how an organization helps employees build psychological strength, which is critical to be successful in today's socio-political and economic times of turbulence. Now, what are those psychological strengths? They're optimism, hope, efficacy, and resilience. So that's what we need. We need to build psychological capital in everything that we do, particularly with leadership, and particularly with the digital transformation and our new AI future that we're all embracing. So, origins, evolution of the psychological contract. So we have at the top of this diagram how the psychological contract started emerging. But what's really exciting is on the below the line, we have the industrial revolutions as they emerged. And we have the different, we have all of the different forces, if you will. We had steam power, we have Fordism in Industry 2.0 or IR2. We have obviously electricity and, you know, the electric era. And when you think that Industry 1.0 or IR1 was 1750 to 1850, and it lasted 100 years. And the second revolution lasted only about 60 years. And we're getting shorter and shorter. So when you look at the psychological contract emerging in round about 1960, and you look at the progression since then, we see that the social exchange agreement emerged along with, in 1989, employer-employee relations, where things started to be more formalized, always very legal, but with some more aspects relating to motivation and productivity and engagement in the workforce. Then we have the emergence of the different types of psychological contract in 1990. And then we start shifting into IR4 and Industry 4.0, where we have the smart machines, we have the Internet of Things, we have cloud emerging, man-machine learning, digitalization in manufacturing. So we have then the duty of care. Even though it's been around for many, many, many years in a legal way, we have the duty of care obligations from the employer starting to emerge, along with diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging, ESG, corporate social responsibility, and all of these things that are starting to emerge for taking responsibility because of external market forces that are really forcing organizations to do this. And then if we jump straight to our most recent future, we see health and well-being emerging as part of a better work-life balance, which I think we're all familiar with. And what we're seeing now as we move into the future is a focus on 5.0 or IR5, which, as Ken was talking about, is really about us being more responsible. We're smarter, but are we more responsible? And how can we work in a way that is synthesized collaboratively with our advanced AI transformation? And we already see virtual reality. We see in a lot of companies that are already in 5.0, companies like Siemens or ABB, Ford even, they have introduced things called cobots, which are robots that collaborate with humans. So we're seeing this, we're seeing the emergence of this, and it is a very exciting time. But when you look at this chart, I think what really jumps out is the speed. It really is the speed of change that we only entered 4.0 in 2011 or 2016, depending upon, you know, which school of thought you have. But we're only in 2023, and we already have the onset of IR5 and Industry 5.0. So the reason I wanted to talk to you about that is because it's very important as we move forward that we do consider human-centric leaderships, human-centric intelligent policy making. And I'd like to just talk, not too long, because I've used my time really to share about the psychological contract, but in 2023, I was commissioned by REA, a global mobility company, and we support dual career families on the move around the world. And I was commissioned by them to develop a research study that really explores the emotional experience of relocation. And in order to do that, I decided to do a qualitative approach in order to look at the value of the metrics rather than just the metrics themselves. So it was innovative. We looked at big data, we looked at big data trends, and we used a thick data approach in order to find out what was valuable as well as what was measurable. It was multi-generational, and we had a global scope too. And I'm really pleased to say that we have been recognized across the industry, not just for excellence in coaching, but for excellence in thought leadership in global mobility and outside of global mobility as well. And it's something that really lays close to my heart because of the magic of psychology, and also because of my own experience as a dual career family and a dual career spouse, having been rendered unemployed when my husband was promoted and I moved with him to Japan and I was unable to work. So for me, this is something very close to my heart. So what did these research results give us? These research results really inform us and give us a little bit more depth into the current psychological contract body of work, because it's the evidence base is there. What we see is the ROI blind spots really are around resilience, building resilience and making the workforce resilient to cope with all of these external challenges, health and well-being, and especially the younger generations, you know, they will not move unless there are certain conditions in place that actually support their health and well-being and their work-life balance. Remote and hybrid working is now also a factor of relocation, where the employee or the transferee also wants to enjoy remote working when they move on assignment, and the dual career family, the partner or spouse, also wants to enjoy a remote form of working practice as well. VUCA. So what are these external geopolitical events worldwide? I mean, you saw how affected we were just from Chris's storytelling of his own experiences. So what do you think the impact of what we are seeing in the news, the doom scrolling, all of these events that we are now confronted with on a daily basis, that is also having an impact on how our employees think and feel? And diversity, equity, and inclusion, these are elements that help connect us and help us belong to the organization, help us belong to the teams that we're working in. So what we saw in my research, or what emerged really, was that there was an element of human connection that was starting to be a little bit neglected. And that we really need to have core policy in our employment contracts for transferees that includes coaching support for health and well-being to build resilience as intelligent policy making. And that this coach support is one of the cheapest, cost-effective mitigation tools for a psychological contract breach or even a violation that could lead to an early repatriation. Now, the cost of this is 0.3% overall of what the assignment costs the company. So when you look at it like that, you realize that this investment is really, you know, a game changer, but a no-brainer. So that's why it's really important for ROI, for these psychological contract needs to be met. Now, I think we can all agree that we need a human-centric approach. The psychological contract is just one step in this. We're going to be including some fantastic insights from Xiumin in a moment on psychological safety. And then I'd just like to round off talking about psychological capital in order to just sign off here. I would like to just bring Xiumin in just for a minute to ask you, in your own practice, Xiumin, does what I've talked about with the psychological contract resonate with you in your own practice with what you're experiencing yourself?
Well, yeah, thank you so much for all of this. You're such a great speaker, Heather. With the work that we do as mental health clinicians, as behavioral specialists, a psychological contract is essential. My clinicians need to know that they can rely on me, what their expectations of me are understood, and that I need to be able to trust them as well. A lot of the work that they do is autonomous and independent, and so there have to be very clear expectations, and they have to be aware of what those obligations are, but they also need to know that they are held and that they are supported, and that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And when they need help, that I am there to hold them and to be there for them. So yes, it's all rings very true, and it's a very central part of the way that I run my business, and that I get success out of my clinicians.
And I think, especially in global mobility, I know with all of the supply chain, I know Christian can talk to this as well, the expectations so that you don't have scope creep and all of this type of thing. There is the psychological contract is there. I know with the clients, for instance, that we engage with our coaching program, one of the key things we do as coaches and as managing the program is to manage expectations. And actually managing expectations is just a code word for decoding the psychological contract needs that are there on both sides. So I'd like to I think it would be good to talk about questions, because I'm sure that everybody has some questions, but what I would like to suggest is that if you can hold your questions for the moment and we hand over to Xiumin in order to give us the piece on psychological safety, simply because both go hand in hand with each other, and many questions may actually be answered, you know, if we just wait until the end of the second session. So, but I think what you will all find, and what I'd love you all to take away from this, is that you will build psychological capital with enhanced psychological safety and understanding the psychological contract, even on a daily basis in your day-to-day life. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Xiumin for insights into the psychological safety in the workplace. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Heather. I am going to share my screen. Let's see. Can we all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. I'm going to move you guys to the center so I can look at you all as I talk. So I'm Shaman Ajan. I am the CEO and clinical director of Shaman Ajan Psychotherapy. We deliver warm, effective, and evidence-based mental health and well-being services tailored to individuals, couples, groups, and organizations, empowering clients to thrive both personally and professionally. I'm here to talk to you guys about psychological safety. And these psychological terms, psychology in the workplace, can feel very intimidating. I know I was speaking to Heather about this the other day. They're very heavy terms. They can seem very overwhelming. I'm hoping to break them down into more approachable and understanding terms the way Heather was able to do with you guys. So why don't we begin with the definition? Psychological safety. When we're talking about psychological safety within a team, we're talking about creating an environment where it feels like you can have open communication, where respect is mutual, where vulnerability is welcome. It's a shared understanding among team members that they can take risks, that ideas can be shared, that concerns can be brought up, that questions can be asked, or even that they can admit when they make a mistake without fearing negative consequences. The culture, the environment that you're working in not only encourages personal and professional growth, but it also fosters a feeling of trust and brings about a positive impact on team dynamics and outcomes. According to a study that LIRA does every year, but according to their 2023 study, 65% of US workers reported that their mental health was impacted by that it impacted their ability to actually do their jobs, which was a pretty big increase, a 5% increase from 2022. So among the key work-related factors contributing to this trend were feelings of a lack of appreciation and concerns about fair and equitable treatment. These findings really highlight the urgent need for organizations to prioritize mental health support and to foster a culture where employees feel valued and treated fairly. Amy Edmondson, she's kind of the guru of psychological safety. She's a Harvard Business School professor, and she is the author of The Fearless Organization. She also has a wonderful website where we'll be talking about later on, where you can take a little test and see where you stand in terms of psychological safety at work. She coined this term, psychological safety, in her PhD research. She went into hospitals and she believed that she was going to find that more effective teams made fewer mistakes. Instead, she found that the teams that reported better teamwork made more mistakes. So why do you guys think that is? We don't have time for answers. I'm just going to let you know. Teams that work better together feel more comfortable sharing mistakes, and they grow and learn from each other. So people on these teams were more willing to report their mistakes because they felt safe to do so. All right, so some key components that I've identified of psychological safety are open communication, mutual respect, vulnerability, taking risks, and positive impact. Let's break that down a little further. Open communication. We're starting here with open communication because it's really the foundation of psychological safety. When employees feel safe to share ideas and to share concerns and ask questions and feel like it's free of judgment or criticism or even retaliation, it fosters trust and collaboration, and it encourages dialogue on these teams. And that creates space for diverse ideas and for creative solutions to problems. Mutual respect. When team members treat each other with dignity and they value each other's contributions. This fosters a supportive environment, a productive environment, and a culture where individuals feel comfortable expressing themselves. And they don't worry about being dismissed. They don't worry about being undermined. Humility. This is really kind of the human factor here, right? When leaders are able to acknowledge that they're not perfect, when they're able to show that they don't know everything, when they seek input from their team, that fosters trust. It creates openness amongst your team, and it brings you guys closer together. This human element, this humility, creates an environment where employees can feel empowered to share ideas. There's nothing worse than being in a team and not feeling like you can speak up because you're afraid to take risks or you're afraid to be judged. And when leaders acknowledge that they are not perfect and don't know everything, it encourages you to be able to speak up, even if you might be wrong, even if you might make a mistake, it's still valuable. And then finally, almost finally, taking risks. It is a vital part of psychological safety because it allows members to step out of their comfort zone without fear of failure or backlash, but also that's where the magic happens, right? When we take risks, when we are able to put out bold ideas or ask tough questions or try new approaches, that's where growth happens. That's where innovation happens. That's where people thrive. When employees see making mistakes as opportunities, then that's when the organization as a whole really, really thrives and grows. And then positive impact. When I'm talking about positive impact, I'm talking about it in terms of the individual and in terms of the team as a whole. So it's that feeling for the individual of being encouraged, of being valued, of being seen for sharing ideas. And that leads to more creativity. But for the team, it increases motivation and it improves overall team performance. Now, according to a study by McKinsey, 89% of employee respondents said that they believe that psychological safety in the workplace is essential. So let's talk about the benefits of psychological safety. It enhances team effectiveness. It encourages collaboration and trust, and that leads to stronger and more cohesive teams. It boosts employee well-being. It creates an environment where employees feel valued, where they feel supported, where they feel confident. It improves employee retention. It reduces turnover by fostering a workplace environment where people want to stay, where they want to grow, where they're excited to show up. It drives better performance. It enables employees to bring their best ideas, and maybe they're worse, but they're valuable too, all of their ideas to the table without fear. And it encourages smarter decision-making. It promotes an openness amongst the team, and that allows for diverse perspectives and for more informed choices. And then increased engagement and motivation. This inspires employees to take initiative, and they feel more invested in the work that they're doing. It builds healthy learning culture. It supports innovation, continuous learning, and resilience through experimentation and through feedback. And finally, it creates a diverse and inclusive work environment. It ensures that all voices are heard, that everyone is respected, that all are valued, and it fosters a culture of belonging. So, how can leaders create psychological safety? I've identified 4 types of leadership that support a psychologically safe work environment: collaborative leadership, compassionate leadership, responsive leadership, and vulnerable leadership. Collaborative leadership can significantly enhance psychological safety by fostering that open communication that we keep talking about, and mutual respect, and a collaborative decision-making process. You're consulting your team. And this aligns perfectly with the principles of psychological safety because it's creating an inclusive and respectful workplace. By involving team members, by collaborating with them and consulting them, by valuing their input, collaborative leaders build trust. They encourage open communication and foster an environment where employees can feel secure and motivated to contribute their best. Compassionate leadership. Compassionate leadership emphasizes kindness, care, and concern for employees' well-being while fostering trust and motivation. It highlights the value of an employee's voice, which plays a crucial role in fostering psychological safety. An example of this in practice might be an employee who seems distracted at work. They're less engaged. They're maybe isolating themselves a little bit more. Instead of reprimanding them for missed deadlines or talking about what they're not doing, a compassionate leader privately checks in. They might say something like, "I've noticed you've been a little off lately," or "I wanted to see how you're doing. Is there anything I can do to support you?" This approach, it shows empathy and care. It opens the door for employees to share any personal or professional struggles. Of course, we need to have boundaries here, and we need to have resources available as leaders, because it's not our responsibility necessarily to fix those problems, but it is our responsibility as leaders to be able to point them in the right direction, to show care, to share support. And a leader who's compassionate helps to show employees that they're valued, that they're understood, and that there's true trust and psychological safety there. Responsive leadership. This focuses on addressing team members with curiosity and awareness. By leading with curiosity instead of blame, responsive leaders create an environment that minimizes threats, encourages open communication, and creates safety. This approach allows team members to be able to share ideas, to voice concerns, to admit mistakes, and to do all of this without a fear of negative consequences. The opposite of this is a reactive leader, right? A reactive leader focuses on the crisis, and they blame, and they're really rushed and urgent. And that creates a sense of fear and defensiveness among team members, not to mention infighting also, and resentment. Being aware of your own tendencies to mind read, to believe that you know what your team member is thinking or what their motivation is. Those are really important introspective parts of being a responsive leader. Let's see, vulnerable leadership. Acknowledging your own challenges or uncertainties as a leader promotes psychological safety as well, because it creates an environment where employees feel safe to do the same. To have a genuine, authentic connection with your team members is a critical role in creating a team that feels safe. And you can do that by modeling transparency, by being an active listener, by creating an environment where everyone feels heard and valued. Of course, there are boundaries here too. It's important to make sure that it is appropriate to share what it is that you're sharing, but in the context of a team, being able to say that I don't know something and we can work together. This is challenging. I don't have all the answers, but we can work together to navigate through this. Let's figure out how to do this together. That kind of openness, it reduces anxiety. It builds trust. And it reassures employees that their leader is approachable, that their leader is a human, a real person who's approachable and is invested in the collective well-being of the team. It really is a cornerstone of psychological safety because you're demonstrating compassion, and you're lowering the guard of your teams, and you're fostering really true connection. And you're creating a culture where your employees feel safe to express themselves and to share ideas and to take risks. So, is your safe space or is it a minefield? What's your workplace vibe? There is a website that I referred to at the top of this by Professor Edmondson. She's the one who did the groundbreaking research here on psychological safety. And I can drop it in the chat so you guys can look at it too. It allows for people to go in and to take a test to see where their level of psychological safety lines up with the general populations, and it offers a science-backed tool for meaningful reflection. And the questions here can offer really meaningful insights to employers and organizations as well. So here's some questions that you want to think about when it comes to your employees. If you make a mistake on this team, is it not held against you? Members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. People on this team sometimes accept others for being different. It is safe to take risk on this team. It isn't difficult to ask other members of this team for help. No one on this team would deliberately act in a way that undermines my efforts. Working with members of this team, my unique skills and talents are valued and utilized. You want your employees to be able to respond to these questions with a resounding yes. If they're not able to say that, you want to get to the bottom of why they're not able to say yes to these questions and come up with some healthier solutions for their well-being and for your organization's overall well-being. So in conclusion here, fostering psychological safety in the workplace is not just a nice to have. It's essential for the well-being and effectiveness of your teams and for your organization as a whole. Creating an environment that values the psychological contract and psychological safety can unlock full potential of their teams. You can drive innovation. You can build a culture of trust and collaboration that really leads to long-term success. All right, I want to open up the floor to any questions that you might have for Heather or for myself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Joseph McGuire, do you have something?
Yes, I have a question. I love to play devil's advocate, as you may have gathered. Question for either Heather or Shameen. Firstly, thank you so much for the presentation. There's nothing there I would agree with or disagree with, rather, in terms of an ideal working environment. Absolutely not. I think we'd all pretty much agree that that would be a very, very healthy space. But I'm sure equally we've all come across business leaders who are not concerned with providing the ideal environment. So when you're presenting this material or these ideas, how do you address feedback from, or pushback rather, from leaders who are, shall we say, less than ideal?
Well, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? The ROI is what speaks to leaders who maybe are not invested. If they don't believe in their employees' well-being, they believe in the numbers. And so that is, the first thing I go to. I hit them in the pockets. Do you want your organization to thrive? Do you want it to grow? Do you want to hold on to your best employees, especially with this younger generation? How are you going to hold on to them? They're going to come and go as they please if they're not getting what they need. How are you going to create an environment that holds on to the best of the best so that your company can grow? If you're not doing these things, you're not going to do that. And I think it has become much more clear. It's always been true, but since COVID, it has become much, much more clear that the mental health of your employees is one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable asset that they bring to your team, to your organization.
It's my job to say that we have 15 minutes remaining. Let's go to Christian and then Annette and anyone else who has something to say. Christian.
Okay, so my question is related to Joseph's. How do you enforce that the leaders that you have that are in power are, first of all, mentally capable of following these directions, of wanting to implement them? And secondly, how do you monitor this? The reason I'm asking is that I've had many leaders in my career that were either completely disinterested in any of what you're saying, or they were so delusional that they felt that they were carrying people who followed all these suggestions, but in reality, they weren't. They couldn't see themselves anymore as to the effect of the effect that they had on people, on their teams.
Heather, did you want to chime in, or I have some thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted as well to follow up with Joseph as well. Yeah, I see the link between both Christian and Joseph. So first of all, we both find psychology magical, but we're not magicians. And people seem to think that if you study psychology, you become some kind of mind reader, and you don't. You just understand, you know, the good and the bad of human behavior. And most of us really are here because we want to make things better and make a difference with our passion. And there is no one fix all solution or one size fits all solution. And I can only talk from my own experience in that generally, wherever there's a difficulty or toxicity, it's usually systemic, and there could be a culture that is toxic. And it doesn't matter how much you work on one individual or even one team member, if the culture doesn't change along with it, then you are not really addressing the problem. What you're doing is you're putting a band-aid or a plaster, as we say in England. You're putting a plaster on it in order just to make things better for a while. So that's why you have short-term interventions, long-term interventions. One thing that I found really successful, and I don't know, Shameen, you can chime in here as well. So coaching at executive level and helping to empower an understanding of how important it is to listen through these different types of leadership that Shameen talked about is one thing. So you can have, you would go in with a short-term solution first of all and do some coaching, and then maybe have a whole program for a team where, for instance, a really positive intervention that I found has been to do a charter. So you would draw up a team charter, and then that team charter would be, you would observe what's happening in the team, and you would look at, or you would use some psychometric tools in order to see where the dynamics are and where there's a potential imbalance. And then a solution process would be suggested. Now, unless we worked within an organization full time, which neither of us does, you cannot then manage 100% the dynamics all of the time. And that doesn't promote a growth mindset either, because the idea of the work that we do is that you bring solutions and you believe and trust that there will be an autonomy afterwards from the learning that you facilitate, that will be embedded. And then there will be a cascade program in order for that to be embedded more deeply. So this is not, we cannot wave a wand and fix everything magically, but it has to start somewhere. So, and I can see Annetta nodding as well. Shameen, sorry, I didn't mean to take away from you, but I'm sure you've got some interesting things to add there too.
Yeah, no, I think you hit most of the points that I was going to make. I think it does come from the top down, and it has to be, there has to be a culture where it's being modeled from the very top down. I think also, who's going to talk to their managers or supervisors if the environment feels toxic? And so if you really want to get that information, it's helpful to contract out for a confidential source to be gathering this information and then sharing it with you so that you can do something about it. Otherwise, you're never going to hear the real story behind what's happening. Even with the psychological safety index that Professor Edmondson has created, having somebody come in quarterly to talk to your employees and ask them about their experience at the workplace and how safe they're feeling, and gathering that data and presenting it to an organization so they can decide what to do. But the organization has to be invested. And that's, go ahead.
Yeah, Shameen, can I ask you please to take down your slides so we could look at everybody that is still here? Okay, this is great. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Okay, great. Who wants to speak? Ken? Oh, no, Annetta first. Okay. And then everybody else.
Yeah, so thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. I haven't got a question. I only want to really thank you because I have the impression that there are different names for, let's say, a similar movement. So what I mean with Love and Peace in Companies is what you described. You have another name for it. And for me, it doesn't make, it isn't that important what the, I don't want to minimize it, but what the label is. For me, it's much more important what is in it and what it really means to work together as humans and no longer as obeying objects in a company. And my experience really is, and I have been working together with a lot of teams and team development processes and so on. And I always realized what you said, that it's very important that the highest level of management, that they agree to this, because in Germany we have a saying, I don't know if it exists in English, if I translate it word by word, it says the fish starts smelling from the head. So it means if you don't start at the head, you can do a lot of things with the teams, but you won't be successful. And really, I think that times are changing now. And so what I do is I don't work together with, let's say, hardliners. I work together with those people who already have the wish to change something, to bring their organization or their company to a next level. And I really love it that you're working with this psychological models and so on, because in my opinion, it's so important to find ways how to contact different people in different ways. And so I'm really very confident that this is going to be the next level, and that it's so good to start working at different let's say, sides, or with different people and different approaches to really change it. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Lloyd.
Number one, thanks for an absolutely brilliant and thorough presentation. It was just excellent. I remember reading about psychological contract in a book. I think the title was Industrial Psychology by Edgar Schein, like back in the 70s. For me, contracts, I mean, obviously are important, but even if it comes to a business contract, I really believe more in the people side of it than the language of the contract. If someone's going to do you harm in business and not stand up to the contract, they'll find a way to work around it and all. I'm much more comfortable working with people on a handshake. Yeah, we can have a contract and sign it, but I have to have that level of comfort to know this person is honest, fair, above board, and it is what it's supposed to be. And I like the psychological side of any contract. I have one very minor question on the questionnaire that you posted, and it said something to the effect that you have to, do you strongly agree with all of these? And one of the questions said, we sometimes accept people who are different. It was, and I thought, oh, that's an odd one, because it really shouldn't have sometimes in there. It should say people who are different are accepted. Because if I say people are sometimes accepted, if I say strongly agree, that's not the world's best thing. And if I disagree, I'm really saying, no, they're always accepted. So I thought that wording was a little off. To me, again, it was written by the professor at Harvard. And at the same time, I think that could be a little confusing in terms of how to interpret a yes or a no response. I think the question has that inherent confusion in it. Just, again, sidebar, tangential to all the great points that you made, but I just wanted to mention it.
I agree with you, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ron Cooper.
A comment, Ed, and a follow-on to Ken and what was discussed. At an early age, I was the kind of person I would remain silent because of various things that would take too long to discuss the reasons for that. But I would never come to you and tell you I need help. You would have to discern that from me. And I'm not going to open up to you, even if you come to me, until that level of trust is absolutely developed, because I don't know if you're going to use what I say ultimately against me. That's a part of the psychologically safe environment that we have to create. And it starts at the very top. And if those underneath you or those subordinate to you do not ascribe to this, what I consider foundational value, we will need to discuss if you are worthy of continuing in my company, because these are the fundamental values to which I ascribe, which form the culture of my company. I just wholeheartedly advocate everything you're speaking of, in a topic for a much different time. Is I use the term, I want to be appropriately vulnerable, meaning I had a very difficult early life and my mental health was not good, but I'm not here to dwell on the past. I am here to just say, been there, done that, and I want for you to know genuinely from my heart, I identify with you. But that to me is compassionate, but yet strong leadership. Done, Ed.
We have 5 minutes remaining, folks. Thank you so much. This is just going to be a wonderful TV show to circulate around the world starting the next day or two. You'll all get a copy of all this stuff, not just this. We're doing audio and video gallery as well as close-up on speakers. And I think there'll be a text or at least an AI-generated summary, maybe more. Khadija, do you want to jump in here as we come to a close, or it's up to you?
Yes, I mean, I just thought that was fascinating. I think it's something that I completely resonated with. I think mental health and well-being is paramount in all organizations, and I think getting it right is the only way that we can actually successfully work and motivate our employees. And I think it goes all the way from from the top down or from the bottom up, however you want to look at it, because I think everybody can be impacted by it in various different ways. And I think just because I think just because people are in maybe executive positions or senior positions, it doesn't stop them from depicting good behaviors and consideration and all of that sort of thing, because it impacts everything that everyone in the organization does. So I definitely resonated, and I was actually thinking, I mean, I think there needs to be some sort of legislation that goes out to all HR all companies, that they probably need to kind of tick these boxes and meet minimum criteria in order to ensure that their employees are psychologically safe at work. It's something that we all think about, but I think it's actually something needs to change in the laws, in employment law, to ensure it, because I think there's a lot of focus in a lot of companies about the physical safety. And whilst mental health is mentioned, nothing really happens, overall. But yet that's the one that can cause a lot of health issues for people, I guess make people not able to deliver to whatever the employment, contractual thing is that you mentioned. I think it's all linked to that, and I think it starts with people feeling comfortable and being supported mentally, I think, because everyone brings their whole self to work. No one brings only an aspect of it, and I think all of us spent majority of our day working and with our colleagues doing what we're supposed to be doing, and if we're not supported, then there's something going wrong. So
thank you, Khadija. Thank you.
I'd just like to mention Stephen Howard has written in the chat box, the key for me is that the psychological safety needs to be implemented at the team level. Every supervisor, team leader, manager can create a psychologically safe environment for the people they lead. So that was Stephen's, and it would be great if you could weave some of that in, Stephen, in your keynote close, please.
I mean, for me, sorry, I think it goes a little bit further, because I think, within a lot of organizations that I've worked in, or, I know a lot of people who have jobs as well. So I would say that within teams, there is predominantly that culture, that safe culture and a safe environment. But when something goes wrong, if you take it to the next layer above, if they choose to do something about it or not, may change everything, because it could be that, as a leader of my team might come to me and share, how they're feeling, what's happening, all of that sort of stuff. And if I take it above and then my manager takes it above and nothing is done, then was there, the team might feel, was there any point coming to me? But actually I don't have any decision making rights as such at times to change something. I can listen, but I may not be the person who can change that. So I think it needs to go to the top, and everyone needs to support each other.
I agree. I think it's on a day-to-day basis. It is those teams and the team leaders that have the most direct impact on a micro level, but at a macro level, yes, it needs to start from the top down for sure.
Stephen?
Well, that's ideal, but in honesty, when you got a large organization with several hundred or thousands of people, it's not going to start at the top. In all honesty, their focus is on share price and quarterly results and things like that. And that's why I say I coach people. I've worked in toxic environment. I'm coaching somebody right now who's in a toxic environment in her part of the company, but I'm also coaching people in that same company who are psychologically safe leaders. They are people-centric leaders, and their department gets the results that Shaman was talking about. They get the collaboration, they get the innovation. Now, unfortunately, the other lady in her department, no, they don't. They have nothing but drama and conflict in that part of the business. But in that company, the CEO is unaware of it. The CEO is got other things on his mind. And this is a company of only about 600 employees. So ideally, yes, at the top would be great, but it's not practical in my belief. And so those ones I coach who are running their departments in a psychologically safe environment, their part of the organization is operating very well. Other parts of the organization are not. And that's just reality.
We have to come to a close. Heather and Shamin, would you like to sum up?
I'd like to say, first of all, thank you to the panelists for your undivided attention. I know I've presented some of these insights previously, so I thank you for sticking with me. Ed, I'd like to thank you as the organizer, and I really appreciate, you calling together and convening this wonderful meeting. And my co-presenter, Shamin, I've learned a lot from you about psychological safety and things that perhaps I can do better as well, so thank you very much. And if anybody would like to contact me, or if anybody would like just to collaborate with anything, just let me know. I'm open for all sorts of collaborations. And if I can help or assist in any way, certainly with Chris, then I would love to do so. So Shameen, you've got the last word.
Okay, well, Heather, I will present with you anytime. Thank you. It was a pleasure working with you and coming together with this presentation. And yes, let's make sure we do this again. As far as everybody in this room, everybody was so kind. Everybody was so receptive. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate you challenging us as well. That's where real conversation and growth happens. Ed, thank you for bringing me on to talk about such an important topic. And I really hope that we have more of these discussions, because mental health is the foundation for wellness all around. We talk about physical health, as Khadijah said, right? And focus on physical health. But if the mental health is not being taken care of, then you're more at risk for physical health issues. So it really is foundational for us to be focusing on this. I appreciate you bringing us together to have this conversation.
And we will continue this type of topic in the health and wellness series called To Life, ! And I'll be announcing that. So Zoom link 3 will become open in just a few minutes, and we'll get into the keynotes. Stephen Howard, of course, but we have a professor from Newcastle, Benjamin Bader, who was here earlier and he left. So I don't know whether he's going to come or not. Stephen, we may have to go with you earlier than expected. Will that be okay? Heavens. Okay, so that needs to be on the next Zoom link. Okay, number 3. Thank you all. This has been wonderful. This will
Bye,
make
everyone. Lovely to see
terrific
you.
TV.
Take care.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
And you're all welcome to Zoom 3.